What is the most largely believed piece of misinformation? Rabbits don't particularly like carrots. Mice don't particularly like cheese. You shouldn't give a cat a bowl of milk. When I was a young veterinarian, a client asked if they could give their cat milk. I explained no, water was better, here's why, etc. And then they said they wanted to do something else besides water. Could I, make cat juice? Thinking I was funny, I said, yeah, maybe if you squeeze really hard. You cold fed a pin drop in that room. They always asked for another doctor after that. I look after a cat who won't drink water on its own, but she will lap it up if it's mixed in with a wet food. You can also buy soups for cats. Some of them can be really picky about drinking. I've even seen Prosecco, which is supposedly a wine equivalent for cats, but that's just silly. Shame that client really didn't understand your humor. Recycling. Corporations are wasting millions of tons of resources and severely damaging the environment. Just Act has a really good video on this. But to summarize, corporations have successfully shoved the climate change problem onto consumers. Please, everyone needs to know this. And it was the plastics companies that were the forefront. Basically, plastic recycling is economically not feasible, and only 9% of all the plastic ever created has been recycled. Honestly, I'd say 9% is still a significant chunk. Dolphins are fun, frolicking, lovable creatures. My sister has a Passamaquoddy and went swimming with dolphins. The handlers had to rush in and pull her out of the water. Apparently it creates a sound that they didn't like and were trying to take it out. So we have sights on the source of the vibrating death ray, but it's in the human. What should we do? Take the shot. Inverted crosses are satanic. It is actually the street Peter's cross. When he was crucified, he requested to be crucified upside down because he didn't feel worth to be crucified the same way as Jesus. Neither is a pentagram inherently satanic either. Only sigil of Baphomet or goat of Menses, which is an inverted pentacle with a goat's head on it. A pentagram is actually a pagan symbol. Like someone else has mentioned, the Leviathan cross is also not really satanic. In fact, other than being the sulfur symbol, it's a mix of two other symbols. The infinite symbol and a once again Christian cross, cross of Lorraine, patriarchal cross. The devil wasn't crucified. What would he need a cross for? Baphomet in the temple of Satan, not church. IDK, if the church used it, doesn't have anything to do with Satan either. Deserts are hot. Many are, but not necessarily so. The requirement is that they get less than 10 inches of precipitation a year. Antarctica is a desert too. I initially read deserts and couldn't understand. Deserts are hot. Many are, but not necessarily so. The requirement is that they taste good and have more sugar than necessary. Ketchup is a dessert too. Clearly seeing the Great Wall of China from orbit, or the pyramids. They're certainly big, but if you've ever tried to find them on a map without knowing exactly where they are, you would be searching for hours. Challenge accepted. Hercules is his Greek name. It actually isn't, and I think more and more people are finding out about this now, but it's actually Heracles. He was named as a tribute for Hera, because she was upset that Zeus cheated, again. Julius Caesar is also supposed to be pronounced Julius Caesar. Caesar, Kaiser. Now it makes more sense why Caesar is a title. Dogs do not subscribe to an alpha-based social structure. Wolves don't either. Stop being mean to your dog. The concept was thought up when someone studied captive wolves. Not only that, but he tried to replicate his study and realized he fricked up and tried to retract the old study, but by then it was too ingrained in the public's beliefs. I teach 6th grade social studies and a student dispelled me of some common ignorance. The Cape of Good Hope is not the southernmost tip of Africa. I was inculcating a new generation with that nonsense, and this student pointed out a spot on Google Earth that looked further south. We looked it up, and sure enough it was a misnomer. A spot east of the Cape is slightly further south. A spot east of the Cape is slightly further south. South African here. That spot is called Cape Agulhas and is the actual southernmost tip of Africa. Cape Agulhas sounds Portuguese as well. Did they name it? There are hot MILFs in your area. Along those lines, anything a dating site says is incorrect. They are paid to make fake profiles and spam you to get you to buy a membership. Then it goes dark. I got one of those once, and they used my actual girlfriend's picture with a completely different bio. It was ridiculous. The whole "we only use 10% of our brains" thing. Nonsense. Came here to say this. People still confidently repeat this, and there will forever be people waxing poetic on what if we used all of our brains? No, I saw that Lucy movie with ScarJo. She used more than 10% of her brain and ended up turning into a computer or something. IDK, the movie wasn't that good. EMT here. Boy, are there a lot, but the one that comes to mind is that if someone is having a seizure, you need to put something in their mouth so they don't swallow their tongue. This is false for a few reasons. 1. It is physically impossible to swallow your tongue. Go ahead and try. It's attached on pretty well. 2. Putting something in a seizure patient's mouth will only introduce a choking hazard. Now the patient has 2 problems. 3. Seizure patients bite, and they bite hard. So if your fingers are in the patient's mouth, when that bite happens, your patient will again have 2 problems and medical staff will have 2 patients. Epileptic here. The amount of times I've had to yell at friends/coworkers to just leave me alone while seizing is insane. You can't stop my muscles from jerking or twitching. You can't make me eat/drink. Sometimes I'm making choking noises, so asking me to do so is counterintuitive. Tongues heal. Let me bite it. I'll be sore for a few days, then I'm fine. I promise that you, Pierce, not you, Op, don't know more than what my neurologists have advised me to do and not to do. You know, I'm curious, when get the aura, what exactly you experience? If you touch a baby bird, their mothers will reject them. My mom made great use of this one when I was a kid, so I'd leave the baby birds the frick alone every spring. I before E except after C. As someone who really struggles with spelling, this rule helps me a lot. I believe the full rule is something like I before E except after C, or with an ending of "ein," or when it makes the sound of "a" as in neighbor or way. This gets me to the correct spelling almost always. I before E, except after C, or when sounded as a as in neighbor and way. Unless the C is part of a sh sound as in glacier, or it appears in comparatives and superlatives like fancier. And also except when the vowels are sounded as E as in seas, or I as in height, or also in ing inflections ending in E as in queuing, or in compound words as in albeit, or occasionally in technical words with strong etymological links to their parent languages as in cuneiform, or in other numerous and random exceptions such as science, forfeit, and weird, or when your foreign neighbor Keith receives 8 counterfeit reindeer sleighs from feisty caffeinated weightlifters. The blood that's in your body is blue. It isn't. It's still red. I remember being taught this by teachers as a child. When I was in the 5th grade, a nurse came to speak to us about our bodies. She told us that red veins carry red blood, blue veins carry blue blood, and some other stuff I can't remember. My parents both worked in the medical field and my dad was amused yet so aggravated a nurse would teach that. She's an idiot. There's no such thing as blue blood. Horseshoe crabs would like a word with you. One Piece will end in approximately 5y. It could actually, but thus is funny. Blind as a bat. Bats are most definitely not blind. What about blind ones though? They can't see that the Confederate flag isn't the actual Confederate flag. Specifically the famous one is the Confederate battle flag. The one they actually used for their new government is never actually flown. That buying homes when interest rates are low is the best time to buy. I don't feel like explaining this again, but trust me that when interest rates are high, home prices will lower accordingly and you'll have a chance to refinance at a lower rate in the future. You're also buying the home at a lower overall cost. You see what's happening now with low interest rates, lots of competition and sky high prices. Yeah, I never really understood that argument. Technically, the rates are the lowest have ever been, but rates haven't changed by more than 1 or 2 percentage points since like 2005. What has changed are housing prices, which will have a much greater impact. Interest rate on my house was 4.75% originally, refinanced late last year to a rate of 2.65%. Originally owed 96k, 180k, ish with interest, on a 30-year loan. After a cash out option I owed 94k, 120k ish with interest, on an 18-year loan. A couple of points can make a world of difference for owners. That carrots improve night vision. This was a plant by the British during WWII to hide the fact that they were using radar. They claimed their pilots just ate lots of carrots. Their pilots are lots of carrots. Damn. That all opinions are valid. Everyone may have opinions. Everyone may speak their mind. Everyone should pursue truths and understanding. However, when debating a topic, there's a big difference between somebody who has spent their entire professional career and education on the debate's subject matter versus someone who saw a post on Facebook. Similar, that you should do your own research. Just know, you should seek out knowledgeable, trustworthy experts. You cannot hope to learn enough about complex topics with 10 minutes of Googling to make an informed decision. That cracking your knuckles can give you arthritis. In 2009 Donald Unger won the Ig Nobel Prize for cracking the knuckles on his left hand, but not his right for 60 years to prove this. I think I remember it started because his mother used to tell him it would cause arthritis and he wanted to prove her wrong. Did he crack the right one right after? I can't imagine 60 years of pent-up cracking. Must have felt so good. Gum stays in stomachs for 7 years. It actually dissolves itself when it's in your stomach, and then you know the rest. It doesn't digest, but it just passed through your digestive tract and you poop it out. If you looked for it in your poop you'd find it. Griped at my GF for eating my entire pack of Publishers Frick Me. All of it in a single day. Later. Ferret's litter box was full of turds with pink twists. French fries. It's not French. Yup, they're actually made in Greece. You need to drink 64 ounces of water a day, or 8-ounce glasses. I know an old guy who doesn't drink any water. He says he gets all his water from fruit and veggies. He may be correct, or he at least gets enough water from it. If you shave your hair will grow back faster and thicker. If that were the case, I'd have a glorious Norse god beard. That our parents walked uphill both ways in 3 feet of snow every day to school. 15 miles. Lao pickles. That red, yellow and blue are the primary colors for painting. It's actually magenta, yellow, and cyan. Those are the real primary colors. Also, the only thing special about primary colors is that they map to the inverse of the colors our eyes see. Our eyes actually see red, green and blue, unless you have another type of color vision. I'm so glad you said for painting. That water is conductive. Water doesn't actually conduct electricity. The ions in the water do. Put 2 leads in deionized water and nothing happens. Add salt, and the circuit will close. I feel like this is a distinction without a real difference. Pretty much any water you cross paths with is going to conduct electricity. You're not going to run across deionized water unless you deliberately seek it out. Almost like saying high voltage will not kill you. It's technically true. A high voltage does not mean it will kill you, but in all likelihood the current induced by contact with it will. I'd say in general it's better for people to keep these inaccurate guidelines in their head and leave the technicalities to scientists/engineers. Tuna and milk is good for cats. Yes, very true. I had a friend who said their dog sometimes drinks the cat's milk and I pointed out cats are lactose intolerant and shouldn't have milk, but they quickly put my fears to rest by clarifying it was lactose-free milk. That the earth is flat. Like, some guy 2000 years ago figured it out with 2 rocks in different cities. People don't actuality think the world is flat. My fave conspiracy. You have to wait 24 or 48 hours to file a missing persons. One time me and my girlfriend in high school skipped band practice to make out, and our worry teachers called our parents who called the cops who evidently looked for us for like an hour. Couldn't catch a damn break as a horny kid. That giving vagal birth or having multiple partners somehow loosens the vag. If you believe this, you should remain a virgin until you gain some insight on human anatomy. Sleeping with many men, loose vag. Sleeping with the same man a lot, nothing changes. HMM. That's because that same man has a small peen, of course. That retail therapy is the answer to your unhappiness. It's just people trying to fill an emotional void in a dysfunctional, self-defeating way. All of the science shows that if you look for personal happiness or fulfillment in this way, you are merely putting yourself in a vicious circle of desire and consumption with happiness and fulfillment forever in the future and out of reach. I have lived my life opposed to retail therapy since I was a kid. But as an adult, I have found that some pragmatic purchases improve my quality of life substantially. Yup, I hate buying stuff, but a new pair of shoes makes me feel like a king. Now I may get 1 or 2 pairs a year, but that's fine by me. This might be a bit outdated, but human-caused climate change and ozone layer depletion are not the same thing. Human-caused climate change is caused by the release of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane, enhancing the atmospheric greenhouse effect, causing an imbalance of radiant energy into the Earth system and out to space, warming the surface of the Earth. Ozone layer depletion is caused by the release of chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, into the upper atmosphere. Radiation splits the CCl bond in the CFC, yielding a chlorine atom which acts as a catalyst in converting O3, ozone, into O2. We have stopped emitting CFCs that are harmful to the ozone layer. This is good. We have not stopped emitting greenhouse gases from fossil fuels. This is bad. Yeah, I never hear about the ozone layer anymore. Schizophrenia or split personality. It's actually a disorder with episodes of psychosis and symptoms like paranoia or hallucinations. Split personalities, correct, would be multiple distinct personalities existing in one body, are exceptionally rare and it's called dissociative identity disorder. You get colds from going out in the cold. You actually get colds around Christmas time because you are meeting all of your family indoors in a warm and close environment, thus spreading viruses. For some reason that famous saying, "Don't go outside, you'll catch a cold," still exists. I asked a similar question to my GP, will I really get sick by going outside in cold weather with wet hair? And she explained me very simply, the cold does not make you sick, the microbes do. However, lowering the temperature of your body makes it easier for microbes to make you sick. And microbes are everywhere, and one easy way to lower your body's temperature is to go out in cold weather with wet hair. So you're not wrong about viruses, but you forgot microbes are out there too. If you touch a frog it will give you warts. I more heard that this applies to toads. Did you know that John Lennon beat the crap out of both his wives and his kids? I've heard the rumor go as far as to say he beat up the other Beatles too, which is a hilarious thought. Basically there is a grain of truth, like many other stories that get warped. John Lennon told everyone about an incident and how it was a big part of him changing in the later years. Before Beatlemania, John was wasted. He slapped his wife, then broke down and cried. This was late 50s/early 60s Northern England. So, not exactly super rare unfortunately, but that's where the story ends. He never hit her again. He never hit Yoko. He never hit his kids. I've read the ex-wife's autobiography and this is corroborated. The only reason we know this story is because John was extremely open about his faults and how he hated his actions and wanted to change. He was an absent father for Julian in the 60s, partially due to Beatlemania, but also just not being around enough. He tried to remedy this in the 70s, but Yoko, who is an actual crappy person, would try to sabotage it and not have him around. John was a very good father to Sean overall. His second son. He retired from music in the mid-70s to take care of his kid. Mick Jagger mocked him publicly for it, saying he's hiding behind his kid and all of this. So basically John gets a lot of crap because he's a very open person and he wanted to openly talk about how crappy of a guy he used to be. But the contrarians turned it into this crazy story and it kept getting weirder and weirder. This is one of those things where you generally believe what you see on Reddit until it's something you know about yourself extensively. Side note, that Bob Dylan case is total bullcrap and literally, physically could not have happened. The lawyer is looking for a payout and is using some women who either isn't well or is misremembering her youth. The lawyer has a pretty heavy ambulance chasing style history from what I've seen. He waited until the last day of a law that New York had before it expired and made this case. Dylan was with his fiancée most of the time, and also in England recording one of the most famous documentaries of all time at the supposed time frame. Dylan is one of the most documented humans of all time. He was surrounded by lots of people constantly. You can account for almost every damn hour of his life in 1965. It's a shame that a headline and a lawsuit can frick up someone's reputation like that. But at least even the comments on Reddit were saying this makes zero sense. Just a side thing to note. Dylan is way different than most rock stars. Only thing he assaulted was piles of heroin and meth that year. I'm kind of amused at the mental image of Lennon in a brawl with the other Beatles, chasing down Ringo and slamming him through a table while the others scatter in terror. Honestly, the strategy for getting a Mew in Pokemon Red and Blue from the 90s. The SSN trick was fake, but there was a real glitch to encounter a wild level 7 Mew. Humans fear the unknown. Arachnophobe. Here, I took this to heart and did my best to learn about arachnids. It didn't help the fear, but it made me realize like 90% of people have no idea that arachnophobia is the fear of arachnids, not spiders. Ticks and scorpions scare me too. Regarding spiders, specifically, there are plenty of myths to choose from. Brown recluse spiders do not cause narcosis of the flesh. Whatever effects have been seen are almost certainly due to a bacteria that lives on the spider's fangs. Black widow spiders are exceedingly unlikely to kill you, though they will absolutely wreck your day. In fact, you may not even notice the pain for an hour or more, and it will typically subside in 12 to 24 hours, leaving you live and well. There have been deaths, but it's very rare. Daddy long legs are not spiders at all, though they are yet another arachnid for me to fear, and they most certainly aren't the deadliest spider, but they can't bite you. There isn't even a misconception here. People just made this crap up and spread it. And speaking of crap people made up for no apparent reason and spread all over the place, you don't swallow 8 spiders per year in your sleep, and the myth did not come from PC Magazine or Lisa Birgit Holst either. Nobody knows where it truly began, but the article most commonly cited almost certainly doesn't exist. But you can. More if you really want to. That politicians actually care. The phrase good president is an oxymoron. Hibernation means sleeping all winter. It doesn't. Enlighten me please. The other day someone corrected me about the McDonald's coffee incident. I firmly believed the lady did it on purpose, but it was clear that it was accidental and McDonald's had spun a story with the media to make it look like it wasn't their fault. Kind of insane how me and most people around me were fooled by that. She was an elderly woman who suffered from third-degree burns on her thighs and vag and had to be hospitalized. The McDonald's had been warned that their coffee was kept too hot as well, just under boiling. She initially sued them just for medical expenses because when she asked politely they refused. The judge was so incensed by their behavior that he awarded her the big settlement which was so widely mocked. And anti-government regulation / pro-business groups spun it into this testimony to frivolous lawsuits. Really a shocking piece of misinformation. The jurors awarded the compensatory and punitive damages, not the judge. The judge actually reduced the punitive damages from $2.7 million to $480,000. The final ruling was that McDonald's was 80% at fault and Liebeck was 20% at fault. Liebeck and McDonald's ended up settling for an undisclosed amount out of court. Pharmaceutical companies can be trusted to value health over profit. I'm not anti-vax, but this is where I can understand the logic of why some people don't trust the vaccines. Swimming after eating gives you cramps, and you will die to death. When you die to death. Bottom text. That the earth is round. It's not. It's an oblate spheroid. You're an oblate spheroid. His mama is an oblate spheroid. The opposite gender is to blame for any misery, judgment, and pressures placed on your gender. Let's be real. Men press men about being more masculine than women. And women press women about being more feminine than men. Star Wars fans, stormtroopers are not bad at aiming. This is a huge misconception, based on a popular misinterpretation of the original film. In 4th, when Han and the gang are escaping the Death Star, the stormtroopers can't seem to hit a damn thing. But this isn't because they were bad at aiming. They were explicitly given orders to let the rebels escape so they could track the Falcon back to their secret rebel base, but they needed to make it look convincing so as to not raise any suspicions. This gradually turned into the huge misconception that we know today: stormtroopers suck at aiming and are incompetent. They are not. In fact, in the original expanded universe material, stormtroopers were often described as fearsome warriors that everyone would tremble in fear of, the stormtroopers of Voldar. Nothing like the new incompetent ones born out of lies. Stormtrooper aim being bad is rebel propaganda in canon, and it's so well spread that some dunce in the Navy decided to link shot to kill ratio to promotions, which is why they didn't shoot the pod with the droids. Some stormtroopers do plainly have bad aim, but like any army it'll vary wildly. Credit cards being evil. I signed up for a credit card when I turned 18 and didn't use it for years because I didn't really understand how they worked and always heard horror stories about them. I think if you're responsible and don't borrow more credit than you can afford, credit cards aren't bad. I think there needs to be more education on how they actually work instead of this blanket statement that credit cards are bad. Don't get them. My mom was one of those credit cards are evil people. Now that I'm fully grown I realize it's because she's terrible with money. I've had a credit card under my name for 5 years now, and I'm nowhere near in any credit card debt. It really does pay to educate yourself. Pun sort of intended lol.